welcome to the Sanctuary, a safe space to speak from the heart. I'm your host, Israel, and I'm so excited for this one. I saw this super talented person on Instagram, like, I need to talk to him. Seth Song is a content creator, poet, musician, and aficionado of Suno, and I want to learn as much as I can from him. Thanks for coming to the Sanctuary today.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was such a great intro. I'm so excited to be here and get to talk to you about all this. It's
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
exciting.
Okay, so which came first, poetry or music?
Uh, it's a tough question. I've always loved music and I played a little bit with instruments when I was in high school, but as far as more like serious stuff, poetry came in like when I was like 21. I read this awesome Bukowski collection and it just got me hooked and I started writing poetry every day and I just, loved it since then. And then making music in a more serious way is really only a 6 month thing right now for me. It's a very,
Oh
very
wow.
recent thing. Yeah, it's super, super
Holy
new for
shit.
me.
Okay, yeah, that's new, 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 new. What do you love about poetry?
Poetry is amazing because I think the thing I like most about poetry is the pieces that are hard to say when you speak poetry. Poetry is so you can do so many interesting things with it on a piece of paper, like what happens when you have a sentence, but you're going to put, 5 or 6 spaces in between two of the words? What meaning does that give you from seeing it on a piece of paper? It's almost like a piece of artwork mixed with like, writing like in a book and stuff. And just how much meaning people can squeeze into so few words into just one page is just incredible. And it's so fast to be able to just read and experience this other person's perspective compared to like a novel or something like that.
Mm. What, I guess, about that book you read made you decide, hey, I want to try this?
I think what it was is he has a super, super strong voice. He
Mm.
talks and writes in this way that's very rough around the edges and it grabs you. And it wasn't necessarily that it was rough, it was that it was such a unique identity that you could
Mm.
feel him just coming off of the pages. And I was like, I had no idea poetry was anything other than Shakespeare and like all the older stuff that we read in school, And so that opened the door to then be able to appreciate those older poems and
Mm.
stuff more once I could see a more modern like person and how his voice was coming across. That was, I think, the biggest thing. And then I was like, I want to try to put my voice out there and see what do I look like if I'm really good at writing? What does that feel like?
And then, what was the process for you? And what has the process when you started writing poetry versus what it is like for you now? Has there been any
Uh,
change between the years?
with writing, writing, there's been changes because I don't write as much anymore. Now that I'm doing the music stuff, it's so hard to find time to even do that, much less the writing. But what ended up happening that I did notice over time, I mean, at the beginning, you can't even really say what you're trying to say, like, you have this idea in your head and you try to write it and it doesn't come out that way. And over time, I noticed I started to be able to do those things I appreciated so much. I started to be able to do these more weird abstract poems that, had super weird formats and schemes and all this stuff, and that just started to come out more, and, that ended up being more the way that a lot of my writing was super weird, abstract stuff that, nothing like Shakespeare or something like that, unfortunately.
Uniquely said. I love that. I love that. Okay, so I mean, you write poetry, you're creating art in your own way, and then 6 months ago, you're like, I'm going to do this music thing. What happened?
Yeah, so I had been messing with Suno, which I guess if people don't know that, Suno's like ChatGPT, but for songs. So instead of spitting out, an essay or an answer to a question, it'll spit out a song or some audio and things like that. And that first came out when I was working at my last job, and I just randomly stumbled on it and tried it one day and made, like, a jingle for the company. And I could not believe that that happened. I have a programming background, and that's a lot of the stuff I was doing, and I could not believe that that was even possible from a tech standpoint, that it was so cool. And now that's so many generations ago, it doesn't sound good compared to what they have now, but that just got me hooked, and then I started just it was just fun just playing around with Suno, just trying to make different things, trying to write some lyrics, making all this super weird song. Like I just like really weird art, so it was cool to be able to make this super weird stuff that's exactly my taste. And
Mm.
then 6 months ago, I was like, okay, I want to try to like make another social media. I've tried it a couple times, and this time I was like, I want to do music, and it worked really well. So now it's I do it. That's like my full time thing now, and I get to make music and make this art and share it with people.
Oh, do you remember the very first thing you uploaded on that account?
Oh, the very first thing I did was I turned this, like, drunk text. I had seen this guy that was big on Instagram, and he would take these drunk texts and turn them into songs. So that was my very, very first video, was trying to copy that. And then maybe 3 or 4 videos in, I randomly had the idea to, "Okay, I'm gonna turn Shakespeare into a song." And that was the very, very first one. It didn't blow up, but it got like 3,000 views. And I was like, "Oh my god, that's amazing." So then, I tried a couple other things, but then that became the thing. Um, so that's how it started.
And the outfit was the background.
Yeah, I guess it's a little weird. I don't normally look like this isn't my day-to-day outfit. This I guess actually the second poetry video I posted was this exact outfit. I don't know what inspired me. This is actually my girlfriend's suit jacket and a scarf she has, and I just used some of her eyeliner. Now I have a something a little better, but to just draw on a mustache and stuff. And my second poetry video was Edgar Allan Poe doing The Raven. And that one just blew up and it was huge. And that's what made me go, okay, I have to stick to doing poetry. It's just like so cool to be able to blend these passions and people loved it. And so now this is my go-to outfit. And I think it's so fun to come on podcasts and do it with this outfit on and be able to represent the
No,
classic
no.
poems this way.
I will say I appreciate it. I appreciate it because this is the set I saw on my Instagram. I'm like, okay, I need to talk to this person.
Yeah, it's my favorite one.
So,
Oh,
what is the process for the making the videos for Instagram for actually for social media?
the videos, it's actually an interesting point. I'm about to do my album's coming out in 2 weeks, and I'm about to do, like, this huge, huge marketing campaign, like 40 videos in 20 days, and it's been, like, a
Wow.
really good time to reflect on what the videos have been, how it's worked. How it typically goes is I use Suno and I, somehow get some kind of chorus that I like from the poem. And so especially at the beginning, it was like, okay, I think people will like this. I'm trying to start the videos on the beat drop. Like usually there's 3 seconds for the hook and then the beat drop into the chorus. And so that's usually where I'm starting. The videos are always like 20, 25 seconds. And I'm always thinking, okay, how can I make a character? And then how can I bring some kind of unique vibe or style to this song in the video that represents, the poem? So
Mm.
for this, it happens to be dressing up like this and doing these like super weird, like faces like this and stuff. It just fits his, like, kinda gothic vibe, and so that's usually the starting point, and, so usually there's some kind of test video. So for this, I was just in the house, and I was just filming myself standing at these different angles, just staring at the camera and saying the poem, and then it evolves. So if that does okay, if that gets like 30K views, 20K views, then I'll try it again and I'll see, okay, now how can I elevate it? And then I went, into the city where I was at the time in Ukraine to Lviv, and we went out on the streets, like cobblestone streets, and I did the same thing, and how can you just keep elevating it? So I have 10 songs coming out on the album, and all of them were like, okay, here's a test video. And then, okay, now let's go try to do it in a cool setting. Okay, and now let's try to get some props and costumes and things like that. So all the videos that you see, especially ones that blow up, they've been like this iterative process of slowly getting the videos better over time.
Wow, wow, wow. Okay, okay. You said your album is gonna have 10 songs. How did you
Mm,
decide on 10 songs and what do you have a title? Obviously, I'm guessing you have a title for the album by now.
I do, but I very you'd think I would have been more prepared. I have to upload all the songs to Spotify in, I think it's 3 days now. I just picked the name last week. I'm working on the album cover literally today. It's like very last second. I just do not want to delay it any further. So the name officially is going to be The Living Archive. And so I had a couple names I was working with, and that one just seemed to resonate with everyone. I think it's a cool one. So that's the title. 10 songs was kind of just arbitrary, and it actually was really hard to hit and make 10 songs. I thought it
Oh
would
my
go a
god.
lot faster. The album was
Mm.
supposed to come out in January, but it just
Oh
took me
wow.
so long. Yeah, I had no idea how long it was gonna take. I was so
Mm.
optimistic. And so 10 was just
So
kinda arbitrary because I didn't wanna be single digits. That was pretty much all it was.
oh, okay. Okay. Well, 10 is a pretty good number. And then did you make exactly 10 songs or did you have more songs and you had to cut it down to 10?
I have exactly 10 finished songs.
Wow.
There was I mean, I tested probably, I think, 20 songs over the course of the last 6 months, somewhere around there, and so some of them people liked, and I started messing with them, I was like, "Okay, let's try to make, like, the 2nd verse, let's see what," and it just wasn't clicking or I wasn't gelling with it, and so I would just leave it at some point in the process. But
Mm,
finished, it's just these 10, and that's, I think, the great part about how I'm approaching it
mm,
is that, I can test the songs as I'm going with the videos, so I know, all the
mm,
songs I know people are gonna like. There's, like, 2 songs on the album that I know are probably not gonna do that well, but I just like them a lot. But for the most part, I just know these are gonna be able to go viral consistently. People love these ones, and so I really didn't have to make any extra that I cut. But
mm.
I'll be doing an extended album at some point where I make some of those other ones and stuff, so I'm hoping to just give people as many songs as I can. I don't want some people are attached to
Nice.
certain poems, so I just wanna put out as much as I can.
No, no, so I was saying, like, talking about Suno,
Oh, no.
do you do everything in Suno? Or do you do some things in Suno and then take it out to a different software to play around with before you finalize it?
So, the process for making the songs is, kinda crazy. It is mostly in Suno. So, Suno at this point is pretty advanced. They have a DAW, like a digital audio workstation built into the website. And they have added a ton of tools that give you a lot of control just using the website. So the typical process is I somehow make the lyrics. I take the poem, rework it, get the lyrics going, and then I go into Suno. And the first step is, of course, like figuring out the prompt. And just like ChatGPT, you can tell ChatGPT, "Hey, give me this," and it'll give you something like that's not what you're looking for. But usually, it's you just need to work on your prompting and like be able to tell it more specifically what you're looking for. And so at this point, I go in. First steps, you gotta you're doing like the genres, what key do you want it, what instruments, the vocal style, some atmosphere, like all this stuff, and you're trying to plan that out. And then you go test it and you just keep updating the prompt, test it, update the prompt until you finally get something you really like. And so what usually happens is I get, whatever it is, that 5 seconds or the chorus or something small. Like people think it's just like you press the button, the song comes out, but it's like totally different. I get like maybe 5 to 10 seconds, and I'm like, okay, this is a great chorus. I'm going to build off of this. And so Suno has this tool now where you can hit extend, and basically from the end of that 5 to 10 seconds that you like, you can keep working from there. And so in Suno, I can do a lot without having to take it outside where I can get, a full chorus done line by line or something like that.
Mm,
And so what usually ends up happening is I get like 300 to 500 variations of the song in like different parts of
mm,
the song over the course of making a song. And I end up cutting together like 15 to 30 of them. Sometimes I just do it in Suno using Extend, but the final piece comes out in Adobe Auditions is what I use, where I can do things like more mastering, dealing with the volume, dealing with EQ and like effects, and do some like transitions and stuff that can be a little tough on just Suno.
mm.
But all the audio is just coming out of Suno, and then I'm just able to mess around with it in auditions.
With the songs and playing around in Suno, at what point do you know that the song is done? Because you could just keep extending it and extending it.
That's true. So that's the tough part. That's where a lot of the pre-planning comes in. Normally how I do it lately, is I have that chorus. I have, usually I start with the first verse, maybe the intro if I'm lucky, and the first chorus, and that's what I test. And when I'm like, okay,
Mm,
it's time to make the full song. Normally, what I've been doing, I've been traveling in Vietnam, and so our habit that we picked up is we go to like a temple or like some nature spot there. And I'll usually spend, we try to go every day when we were there for like 20, 30 minutes. And I just sit with it and just listen to it over and over again, looking at the poem and stuff. And then I come home and I really quickly try to write it out. And I try to have in my head like this super clear picture before I start of what I'm going for. Sometimes that changes. Usually when I hit the bridge, all the plans go everywhere because it just gets crazy because I love the bridges. But I have a very, very clear picture before I start. So that's how it doesn't just get where you just keep going and going and
Keep
going.
extending. And the lyrics itself, are those like some of your poems? Are those like Edgar Allan Poe, or
So
where do
all
the
the ones
lyrics
on
come from?
this The first album, all the lyrics are so every song is a different super famous classic poem. So I have 3 Edgar Allan Poe ones because that's just everybody's favorite. I have Charge of the Lark Brigade, Ozymandias, some Robert Frost, one Shakespeare poem, thankfully. And so they're all gonna be famous ones. And then the extended edition, I think I'm gonna start branching out and doing some weird stuff. One thing that I've been thinking about is I started this new series where I'm taking my community's poems and turning them into songs. And so there's one that's done really well where I'm like, okay, maybe I'll put that on the extended album. That'll be so cool. But I don't know what it looks like once that extended album's over. I don't know if I'm going to be switching to me writing songs, which I've done a little bit. I have one single out where it's just my songwriting, or if I'm going to take from my poems that I've written and try to do some of my stuff. If I'm going to do more classic poems, I'm not sure yet. But all these ones on this album are just like super famous poems reimagined.
Amazing, amazing. So let's go back to the technical aspect. You say you have a programming background. Does it make it
Mhm.
easier for you to use, or how would I'm just starting out? I go on the website. Like, what advice would you give someone that's just starting out based on using it for so long?
That's a great question. The first step is when you get into Suno, they have a basic and an advanced generation style. Um, I would go to advanced as soon as possible. It gives you a lot more micro control of what you're doing. You're choosing the specific lyrics, you're choosing the prompt, you're choosing the negative prompt, so what you don't want it to have. And then you're selecting like how weird is what they call it that you want the song to be. It's really just like how creative the song is in the background of what they're doing and like how much it should stick to the prompt versus trying things. So my tip would be just go straight there and start messing around as much as you can and use the extend tool. I think a lot of people go in and they don't realize that it's not just press the button and get the song in one go. You want to go
Mm.
in, you want to extend it, you want to mess with the other tools they have. Um, and even the DAW that they have now, Studio, you can go in and add an instrument line by line. So you can have your bass song and then go, okay, now I'm just going to add an electric guitar under this. So like in Charge of the Light Brigade, one of those, I think it's my biggest song right now. I'm not sure. But there's this part at the bridge where it's like all these instruments are like slowly growing into this like awesome cinematic thing. And it's like that was in studio going line by line, going, okay, we're going to start the piano here. We're going to start the guitar here. We're going to start the violin here. And so I think it's just, realize it's not one button press. You got to go in and do some more changes. That would be the biggest advice. And I think people will figure out everything from there. That's the most important thing. As far as the
Mm.
programming background, there's no programming involved. I think it just helps with the understanding of what's actually happening with the AI. I think it's been a lot easier for me to prompt even ChatGPT and things like that, just because I'm understanding a little bit more of the back end of what's happening. Um, but outside of that, I don't know.
Okay, okay. And my first intro to you was like a partnership with Suno itself. So is that
Oh, really?
partnership still happening? How
Yeah.
did that come about?
So I was using Suno for that a long time. And love them, and they had, I just happened to check, when I left my old job because I started to travel a lot, I just happened to check their career page, because I just love them so much, and they had some stuff for content creators and marketing and things like that, so, I am partnered with this right now still actively, so I am a little biased, I always use them, but, I am still working with them, so you definitely maybe have seen me in a couple different ads, I do a lot of those for them of showing off the different pseudo features and things like that. I like to do that.
Mm, I mean, I think why it's believable. It's like you're not just shilling it; you're actually using it yourself, right? So
Mhm.
it makes it more believable and relatable. Like you're using the thing, and you're telling me this is how I use the thing. If you love this
Yeah.
thing I love, this is what I use. So to me, at least, that's how it made sense to me.
Yeah, and that's what I hope to forever be able to stick to is just show off stuff that I really love or believe in. I think there's enough stuff that's really great out there to never have to show something that's, just okay or something.
Okay, so you built a community creating these amazing songs. They are fun, they're interesting, the character is wonderful. You actually have your partner in some of the clips, so that's cool too. But there are gonna be people that are like, you're not a musician, right? Like, I mean, you're not, making the thing. You're just like behind on your computer doing stuff. Like, you're not a musician. What do you say about that?
That's a great question. That was a very, very tough thing at the start of making this social media account. I think actually AI hate in general is starting to lessen a little bit, but at the beginning, it was kind of brutal. A lot of people were coming out and saying that because I tag Suno in every post and stuff. I try to not hide it. I don't come out and like post ever, but I try to not hide it either. And people were very, very mean. It was tough. But now, I've had a lot more time to think about it. I've seen, the impact it has on people. People like the songs. It helps now that I've released the songs. I can see like this is having an impact on people. It's doing what I wanted it to do, which is like spreading the love of poetry. It's introducing more people, the amount of teachers that are like, oh, I showed this to my students, or I'm showing this to my kid, or and so that's helped a lot with that. But I think my main um thoughts on this conversation, this like argument that people say is I think it's okay if I'm not like a real musician. I don't mind if people don't think it's real musician. That's okay with me. And I don't know if you should call it real musician. I think like for example, DAWs came out, right? And all of a sudden we're making music on computers, and you don't even need an instrument. And it's like, for the most part, people who use DAWs and stuff, they're called producers. And so it's a different name, but so if there needs to be some kind of different separation to be like AI producer or AI something, I don't know. That's okay. At the end of the day, I just think I'm still an artist, but I don't mind if it's not a musician or that's okay. It's up to people what they want to label it. The main thing is I just want to create this stuff and put my creativity into it and be able to share it. So I guess that's my main take on that.
No, I gotta respect that. So, I write and stuff, and sometimes I'm like, oh man, I'm spending this time writing. But how me I look at it is that so the genie is out of the bottle. Like it's not
Yeah,
going back, it's
that's
not going back. And the thing I believe every creative person can do for themselves is just at least understand how the damn thing works and then see
mhm.
how you can use it in your pipeline. Cause guys, it's not going back in the bottle. It's not going back in the
No,
bottle.
that's true, and that's, like, the crazy thing is there's just no way I mean, there's so many this is just it's out there forever now. For better
Yep.
or worse, that is the
Mm.
process. I like that idea of it, of how it's used in the pipeline and things, and I think there's still a lot of, I think it's still very new, and so it's still it hasn't flattened out yet how it's gonna pan out. My vision
Mm.
of how AI is gonna work like, I was so shocked when I first heard about AI, like, hate, like, generative AI hate. I was, like, genuinely so shocked, years and years ago now. When Dolly first came out and you got those little, 2D pictures, that was the best thing I had ever seen in my life, It's, like, the coolest thing, and maybe it's just the programming backend, but well before I ever did this music and stuff, I do like a ton of other art. I do the poetry, I do photography, I do digital collages is really I think my main thing that I put the most into outside of music now. And when this stuff came out, I never felt like, oh my gosh, it's gonna steal my art or something like that. Um, it was just so cool, and it was like how to use this in that. But I also think people haven't seen yet that I think from my perspective of where I'm sitting now, having used it so much, AI art is gonna separate from traditional art. Right now, it's like AI art's trying to copy traditional art, but I don't think that's gonna be the case. Like, when I'm making the Suno songs, one thing that's really hard is to get a consistent voice. It's improving, but it's kinda tough. So, having the exact same voice in verse 1 and verse 2 is kinda tough. It's gonna be a little bit different. It's not gonna be exactly the same. And so my not challenge, but to me, the opportunity with this album was like, okay, then how can I lean into that? Every song on the album is a different genre. Every song on the album has a different voice. I could try to make them all the same voice, But I think that's the advantage of AI is that, okay, then I'm gonna make everything different. A lot of the songs are much more story based, partly because 'cause they're
Mm,
poems, but partly because, okay, if I can't have it be the exact same voice in verse 2, then instead let's completely change verse 2 up and make it more of a storytelling arc instead. And I think
mm,
you're gonna see a total separation of the type of music that AI is really good at and the type of music that people are really good at. And they're gonna be different things. And it's gonna be these 2 different lanes, just like I do the digital collages. And people do the real collages, right, forever, where they're taking the newspapers clippings and the magazines and making these amazing pieces of art. And the digital collages are just nothing like that. You know? You could do it that way, but, you're doing things like blending the layers with all this pixel manipulation, all this crazy stuff, and you're getting 2 totally different things. Like, you can clearly tell these are different things. Digital collages are no longer they're not just copying what collages are. You just can't. They have different strengths and weaknesses. So, I think
yeah,
as we
yeah.
develop, you're gonna see that happen. So, I think people shouldn't be as scared because I think it will separate. There is some issues with, like, other things, but I think that's I don't know, I think people should be excited about it. We're gonna get a lot of cool new art here at some point.
Yeah, no, I didn't even think of that, but yeah, that's one way to look at it. One thing I want to touch on before I let you go is travel. You travel a lot.
I travel a lot.
So how did you well, you travel often, but how did you get the traveling bug and where are some places you've been to so far?
Oh, it's an insane story. I really never traveled. I got to go to Costa Rica when I was in high school, and I went to Canada once, and that was, like, the extent. I really didn't like traveling at all, and what ended up happening is my mom and my dad had a trip booked for Poland. And it just worked out where my dad ended up not being able to go. They planned it too far in advance, and so my mom was like, "You wanna come then? I guess it's already booked," and it was with a tour group, and so I was like, "Sure, I'll go." Like, "Alright, it's free, right?" So, I went on that trip to Poland, and we were maybe, like, 4 days into the trip, and, I was just not into what the group was doing, so I just went off and did my own thing. We were in, Warsaw, and I was in this huge watchtower, that's over the whole city, and I randomly got into an elevator with this girl, and she happened to speak English, and, we ended up spending the whole day together, and unfortunately, the next morning, I left to go to Krakow. That was when the group was leaving. And we ended up talking for 6 months, and now that's my girlfriend that is in all the videos and helps me film and everything. And it just took that one day, and then it was like, okay, so she's Ukrainian, which is why makes it difficult. So I'm American, she's Ukrainian, so she can't come to the US very easily visa-wise. Ukraine is very tough to go to right now, obviously. And so it's like, okay, I guess we're just gonna travel. And so we started with a 2-week trip and then a 1-month trip and then 3-month trip, and it just kept going, and now we started, oh man, like 6 months ago now, we're just traveling full time.
Amazing.
I I left the job, I'm doing this music stuff now, and she has an online job, and we're just, living the dream traveling. It's stressful, but it's really cool. Um
What are some cities you guys have been to? You say stressful. What are some of the stresses?
Oh, it's so stressful because it's like things you just take for granted in normal life, like being able to go to the gym is like a privilege now. It's like you can't go to a gym easily. We're in Japan. It's been so difficult to get into a gym in Japan right now. They just make it kind of difficult.
Yeah, I
Things like
read about that on yeah, I read about that on Instagram, and I didn't believe it because I just thought someone was but, well, yeah, coming from your whoa, holy shit, okay.
it's really weird. It's just been tough. It's really expensive if you want to do day passes. It's very complicated otherwise. Um, and so it's like that's you just can't go to the gym. You don't have like a social circle that you're with consistently, right? So every connection is just online. Um, routine, constantly switching time zones, like all this stuff, and at some point you just miss stuff like I want like normal movie theater popcorn. It's like so bad. Just this small stuff that you don't realize is important until you're gone for 8 months.
Right.
But we've gotten to see a lot of cool stuff. I think our favorite spot, recently was Vietnam, which we were not expecting. We just kinda went there on the way to Japan, and the people there are just the nicest people I have ever met, ever on any trip. They will go out of their way to help you. They're so nice. Everything's so great. The infrastructure is great. It's pretty, like, and it's cheap. The food is some of the best I've ever had. So that that would be my recommendation if people are going somewhere. Vietnam is crazy.
Amazing. Okay, yo, Vietnam. I'm kind of envious in Japan because that's like my and a lot of people's ideal destination. Before I let you go, one last thing though. The album is
Mhm.
coming out, and you have like some things also planned out for every creative out there or someone that wants to start sharing their content. What advice would you have for them?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think the path I have taken has been really weird, and I think it's something more people should try to do. The way I've always thought about myself is that I'm more of a jack of all trades. I don't have any specific skill I can point to and be like, that's what I'm better than other people at or anything like that. Um, this is, I think people just see, okay, there's success. This is like the, God, I don't know, like the 20th try at starting something. And this is the one that's worked the best, you know. But how many social media channels I've started, how many businesses I've started, how many different programming projects, game design, all this crazy stuff. And I think it's just about not sticking with it, but keep doing what you're having fun with, and try a lot of different stuff. It's very hard. I think a lot of people get stuck that like you want to get good at one thing, you want to get really good at one thing, and I don't think that's true. If it's fun for you, keep doing that one thing, but if it's not, you can move on. It's been so The reason this has worked so well for me is because I've done all these different things. Being able to
Mm,
pull my limited music knowledge and experience, being able to pull, all my video editing and stuff, being able to pull the marketing from the different businesses I've done, um, my art in general from all these other art forms has, like, super easily translated to Suno. Like, that's something that's so surprising about art is how easily you can transfer, not the technical skill, but just the thought process, the ability to be in the flow, and everything just kinda comes together. Like, right now, I'm able to make my album cover because I do digital collages, so that's just not a big deal, you know? Poetry, I never knew that would come around and come into something, so I would just recommend to keep doing what is fun. If you want more advice, like really what to do, I think with TikTok and the social medias, the biggest change for me, the reason this time was a success versus the other time, was I viewed it much more as not a business in the sense that like I'm trying to make money for it, but as a business product in the sense that you're going to put out this prototype and it's going to be something small and easy and you're going to test it. And then if you're gonna put out a bunch of tests and whichever one works best, you're gonna go with that and you're gonna keep testing. And that's worked so much better than what I tried to do before, where I'm just putting out the content. You just gotta keep putting out the content. Eventually it'll work. But like you need to look at the metrics and be like, okay, people watch for 1 second longer on this one. So why? And then try to test that and do that. That's the biggest change that I would recommend for blowing up on socials and things like that.
yo, Seth, thank you so much. Oh, wait. One last one. Seth Songs. I
Yes.
love that name. What? How did he come about? I mean, obviously, it's songs that your name is said, but like it could have been literally anything. How did you narrow it down to that one?
Seth Makes Songs was I just wanted at the beginning, I didn't know I was gonna do poetry. I just wanted to do music, and I just wanted
Mm,
it to be so obvious that this is just songs, and they're fun songs, and I'm, like, putting the songs together, and I just wanted people to know that, and that was what happened, and I'm actually sad to be letting it go. Now that the album's coming out, I'm having to change everything over to my official Spotify name of Seth Abstract, but I think that was the perfect name for a long time,
yeah,
and it
yeah,
really, I
yeah.
think, helped people see it.
Thank you so much, Seth. I love the songs. I can't wait for the videos and the album when it's out. I'll be sure, once you have your pre-order link ready to go or hyper follow, I will definitely follow because I can't wait for the next thing you're creating. Thank you so much for the time and thank you so much for coming to the sanctuary today.
No problem, I appreciate you so much, this was so fun.